Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Institute of Child Psychology's YouTube channel. My name is Tammy Schamuhn, and I'm a registered child psychologist. And I am the mom to three kids who have struggled with sibling rivalry from time to time. So that is what we are going to be talking about in this video. What you're going to learn is how birth order impacts sibling rivalry. So that's really important to kind of dissect is when they came into the world and how we interact with our kids based on that. We're going to learn a key piece of information that most parents don't want to hear, but is going to be really important to acknowledge in terms of moving forward. And we're going to look at ways in which we can foster sibling relationships. So really hoping you enjoy this video. And at the end of this, you will have some ideas how to manage sibling dynamics in your home. So, one of the things I want every parent to know is that children are excellent observers, but very poor interpreters, which means they're watching what you do and they are interpreting that in a different way if there's a lot of rivalry. Kids really just want to be seen and heard, and they're going to do whatever they can to vie for that connection from you as a parent. And if they perceive something as being unfair, and it's usually about fairness, some things are going to start happening and kids are going to start vying for your attention in some toxic ways at time. Now, I want to be clear, not all rivalry is bad. Sibling conflict is good to certain capacity, meaning I would rather my children practice how to have a fight, how to resolve a conflict within the family where I can maybe mediate a little bit and I can observe what's going on and nip certain things in the bud versus them doing this with their peers at school where it can get out of hand and I can't kind of scaffold the interactions. I can't give them the language and the skills then to get through that conflict appropriately. Now, let's talk about birth order. Now, of course, we're talking about averages here, and every child's a little different. But on average, let's say you have three children. Now, it's going to be different if you have two, different if you have one. But let's say for this video's sake, you have three kids. Your oldest child tends to get a lot more one-on-one attention from adults. So on average, actually, they score higher on IQ tests. They do better in school. They're much higher achievers, and they're often a little more serious than your younger ones are. And they're given a lot more responsibility because of their age. So because of this, there's higher expectations for our firstborn because they're our firstborn and we have a lot riding on this. We haven't parented any other kids yet. Then along comes number two. So number two, we have now decreased probably the expectations. We've relaxed a little bit. But because our firstborn tends to be higher achieving, does really well, our nextborn is going to feel a little more competitive. And they're going to want to be seen in a different way than your older one. So you'll see maybe your firstborn will be really strong in academics and your second might be really strong in athletics. Not always the case, but again, we're talking about on average what happens in birth order. So that middle tends to polarize and can really struggle, whether it's your middle or your second born, they struggle with feeling a little more invisible. So just being aware of that. But also we don't have the same expectations. So this can cause the firstborn to feel resentful of the second, third, fourth, etc. So just be aware of that. They may feel, your firstborn might feel they're carrying a lot of weight on their shoulders versus your second, third, fourth, etc. And then once you have a younger one come along, so your third, fourth, whatever your youngest child is, sometimes what happens, so this could happen when you have just two kids as well. They're the baby. If that's the last child you're having, what can happen is we have a lot lower expectations and they have way more freedom, which then causes resentment sometimes in the first one. They have had mom and dad, all to themselves, and here come the second or third born. But often our younger ones feel less capable because we tend to baby them a little bit more. Maybe it's because we've relaxed a little bit. We know we're not having more kids. So you have to think about how your child kind of fits into this schema. But understand there's dynamics that go on between siblings based on how much connection and attention each child gets. Now, here's the kind of the piece that I really want to hit home. And this is not easy to hear as a parent, but I've been working with parents one-on-one for 13 or 14 years at this point. And as a parent who has three kids, I can tell you that you love your children the same. Absolutely. And each love is a little different, right? And each connection is different. But in any given moment, you do not like them the same. You are not connected to them in the same way that you are with one of your other kids. Why? Maybe there's something about one of your kids that's just easier to get along with because you have similar interests. You're more alike. One of your kids may just simply rub you the wrong way. Now, that could be because maybe they remind you of a part of yourself that you're not very fond of. We call that projection. Maybe they remind you of, maybe you're a divorced parent and they kind of remind you of your ex-spouse. There's lots of reasons why our kids trigger us. Maybe we're really uncomfortable with certain emotions and that child is full of those emotions. So I think first we have to acknowledge that our dynamics with our kids tend to be different, but they don't understand that it's simply our own baggage that's coming into play. They are reading it as you love one of the kids less. So I think the first step with sibling rivalry is start to acknowledge, is it pretty obvious to my kids, even though I don't mean to do it, that I have a preference here? I tend to have a go-to kid. I tend to spend more time with one child more than the other. And maybe that's because you always take them to hockey or you always take them to dance class because that's the time of day. Or you have a child with special needs and you have to spend more time with that child because they have, certain sensory needs or they need more discipline. But kids are not perceiving it that way. They're perceiving it as you care more about that other child, the one you spend more time with. So I think it's really appropriate we start to look at that, dissect it a little bit, and be honest with our kids and just have that conversation sometimes. And just, in a moment of connection to say to our child, I wonder sometimes when you see me spending more time with your brother, for whatever reason that is, it feels really unfair. And I wonder if you want more time with me. So we're not accusatory. We're just being curious and open of how our kids are perceiving our interactions with one another. So the other piece is fairness around contributions around the household. So I understand, I have a 16-year-old. My 16-year-old can do a lot more than my 8-year-old. But I have to make sure that each child has age-appropriate chores and age-appropriate contributions that they're making around the household. And as often as possible, I'll want them contributing at the same time. So if it's time for chores, having all the kids doing chores at the same time. So it might be one kid is, feeding the pets and one of them is vacuuming the carpet and one of them is cleaning the bathroom. Whatever that is, we want to somehow have this discussion with our kids about what is meaningful in terms of contributions. And sometimes we have to sit down, I have done this with our older ones, and remind them that they have a lot more capability than their younger siblings. But when those younger siblings get older, they're going to have to do those things too. So that time is coming, and make sure you follow through on this. The next piece is, do your kids get one-on-one time from you? All of your kids. And same with if you were in a 2-parent household, is that parent making that same effort? This is very, very important. Even if it's just, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, or you do a mommy daddy dates, or they get a play date with that parent, or the parent takes them for a walk somewhere. So each child is getting that really unique connection with each parent. That's going to help a lot. Do we recognize how each child is unique? Talk about that in terms of gifts and in how each one is unique, and just spend time talking about that sometimes at the dinner table or acknowledging that before bedtime. Another thing is, do you compare your children? So that is a really quick way to sabotage relationship. Saying things like, why can't you be more like your sister? She is unloading the dishwasher. She always gets her chores done. So comparison is going to break down and erode that relationship very, very quickly. Another thing I like to say is, when something is going on in your household and it's not working, whether kids aren't doing their chores, there's too much screen time, and it often is impacting one sibling more than the others. Have a family meeting, talk at the dinner table, and instead of framing it as this is a problem for you, Aiden, or this is a problem for you, Rosie, you're going to say something like, I notice in our family that this is something that's we're struggling with. I notice we're struggling with screen time. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Or I notice there's more fighting going on in the home. Instead of saying, Rosie, why do you always pick on your brother? So we're making it about we, and it's about the family, instead of it being accusatory and about that specific child, which shames them and it shuts them down entirely. Here's another one, is celebrating each child's success. So, what we want to do is ensure, even if it's something really small, because often our older, not always, but often our older kids are really high achievers. So, we want to find even small ways that our younger ones or the one who maybe isn't as high achieving works towards a goal, and we celebrate that as a family. Or you can go out for dinner or go to a movie to celebrate every person's success or a goal they've met that week or that month or that year. So we could do goal setting with siblings is really good. In my family, we have a zero tolerance policy towards unkindness. So now kids are going to disagree. Of course, they're going to get frustrated. They're going to say, I'm mad at you. And they storm to their room and they slam the door. What I mean by unkindness is name calling and being physical with one another. And again, we're going to frame that around in our family, we don't. Instead of you don't do that to your brother and you stop doing this, is reminding them that in our family, this. So, in my opinion, letting kids work out minor squabbles is actually a really good thing. It's when it gets to the point where we're getting physical, we're name calling, we're swearing at each other, that is when we are going to be intervening. Now, one of the strategies I learned when I was a teacher before I became a psychologist was catch them being good. So often as parents, we focus on the conflict, we focus on deficits, like what our kids are doing wrong, instead of noticing what they're doing right. And whatever we focus on expands. So if you want your kids to be kind to one another, you need to catch them being kind, even if it's something really, really tiny, and give them connection there. Ignore as much as you can the times they're not getting along and focus your attention at least 5 to 1. So 5 times for every one negative. The amount of times they show altruism, when they extend compassion to one another, when they share with their sibling, whatever it is you want to see more. So that is a great one. Um, I think that gratitude is a huge piece, is being telling your kids you're so lucky to have such a kind older sister, or isn't it just wonderful how your little brother makes everyone laugh? We're so grateful for him. So we're extending gratitude not only that we have for our kids and their unique gifts and contributions, but pointing their attention to when their sibling is helping them, that is they're kind and being compassionate to them. So really just putting all of the eyes on how their sibling is a gift in their life in some capacity is going to, we are going to ensure that our kids have enough space in the household that they can get away from the other sibling. It's really common for kids to poke and poke and poke at each other. So they don't explode, we need to know kids have an out, that they have a space they can go to. Tricky if your kids are obviously sharing a bedroom, but that could mean maybe if one kiddo is in the bedroom, then the other child, if they need space, has to go in the spare bedroom or in the office or mom and dad's room. But if your child has your own bedroom, the rule is once they go in there, they are not allowed in their sibling's room unless they are invited in. So we institute knocking as an example, that is their space. It is sacred. It is off limits. And that might be, if they don't have a bedroom, maybe it's a couch or it's another space in the house that is, it's very clear that we need to respect that sibling's space. And lastly, for this video, do as many things collaboratively together as a family as you can. So whether it's bike rides together, having family game nights, anything where we can foster getting along in a fun way. Maybe it's going to the swimming pool together as a family. Maybe it's playing Monopoly together. Maybe it's playing charades. My kids love playing charades. Whatever that thing is, it could be even movie nights, playing video games together. But the children are all getting connection from the parents at the same time. At the end of the day, sibling rivalry comes down to typically fairness and feeling seen by both parents. So we have to acknowledge that sometimes we do have favoritism. We do have a go-to kid. We have a kid we enjoy spending time with more. Maybe not going to tell kids that, but we need to work on that. How do we make things more fair? How do we foster connection and playfulness within siblings? Remember to focus on the donut, not the hole, and let them work things out with each other as much as they can, letting small squabbles kind of go. And then in the next video, we're going to talk about when things go sideways, what can you do?